Hello, hello. Welcome to the live stream tonight. Hello, Tio. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Hayden, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm happy to be able to start streaming again with you on a Friday morning over there. It's
Yeah,
been a long time, hasn't it?
it, it's been almost 6 months, 8 months now. It's been a while.
Yeah, I've had a bit on, so sorry about that. Looks like we've got 20 already in the chat. We've got 45 Auto says, "Hey, Plasma Storm always there, of course, even when it's in the middle of the night over there. He's still
He
in our
doesn't sleep.
streams." No, I know. Dirk is there. Howdy.
Morning,
And
Dirk.
John as well. Good evening from VK6. 9 p.m. start for us. I've finally been able to make it to a live stream. Yeah, well, it's 11 p.m. where I am here, but that's okay. We'll have fun tonight, I'm sure.
He's that
So,
far away from you?
yes, he is. It's probably about 2,500 or no, about 3,000 kilometers. So what's that in miles?
I don't know. Those numbers don't make any sense to me because like a 9
I'll do a quick
call
conversion.
and a 0 call and an 8 call are all right next to each other. But it's if you go across the country, it's 8907.
1,860 miles. So there you go. Yeah, well, our core areas are based on postcodes, or zip codes as you call them. So, but yes, John is in Western Australia, which is VK6.
Yeah.
And hello to Gunter as well. Happy weekend! It is in another hour it will be the weekend here.
I get started early. We got like 8 hours to go, but I'm there already.
Whoa, good segue. Starting early and being prepared. We're talking about Solar Cycle 25. Solar Cycle 25's been, I don't know, it's been promoted a lot, hasn't it? We're talking about it every single week, I think, on at least some stream or some post or something or other. So we thought in this stream, we're going to try and explain a little bit what the solar cycle is and what to expect, but how also to be prepared for increasing and better band conditions, what you can do to maximize your opportunities to make worldwide contacts you normally wouldn't be able to. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. And if at all possible, we may even try for a contact between Steve and myself after we've been through all that, because we're seeing some good conditions on 20 in the last few days, haven't we, Steve?
We have. We actually made 2 contacts yesterday.
We did. I wasn't going to say that because we've just spoiled the surprise, but that's okay.
Oh, well, no, it's an everyday thing. We have no idea whether we'll be able to make a contact today or not.
That's correct. And conditions have been definitely on the improve, because just yesterday I was live streaming and managed to make contact with, I think, 2 or 3 people who were in the chat, or maybe even 4 people who were in the chat on sideband, and then later on switched to FT8 and also be able to work the ARRL HQ was pretty cool as well. So and a few others jumped in there too. So it's definitely improving. Did I?
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Apparently they were starting to work a pile up after they actually turned the radio on.
It's all my fault. Well, that is key number 1. Turn the radio on, and we'll talk about it tonight. So we've got a little bit of a slide deck here. It's not death by PowerPoint, so we don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But we're going to be talking again, yes, about Solar Cycle 25, and you can see a nice view of the sun there and some sunspots. So we'll talk about those as well. So pretty much the first thing that I wanted to go into was, where are we now in the solar cycle? So basically, we can have a look at this chart, which I saw on, I think, Facebook a few days ago, and I shared it out on Twitter as well. And you can see there that there's a red line, which is called the official forecast, or the predicted forecast. And you can see that there's a nice little peak that says around about July 2025. But then there's an arrow there that says you are here, and you can see those little dots that are the sort of the average as we go month by month into the cycle, and we're substantially higher than where we probably were predicted to be. So that's a very, very good thing. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to continue on that trajectory, but it's looking pretty good. So yeah, we're ahead of where we should be, which is excellent, because Solar Cycle 24, which is the previous one, which peaked in 2014, that was rather quiet. in comparison to previous solar cycles. So what all this means we'll go into a bit later on, but Tio and I were talking earlier on and saying that this is your first full solar cycle experience, right?
First shift from one solar cycle to another for me. Yep.
So I've been through a couple, but I've only really been active on the higher bands that I want to be active on in the last solar cycle in 2014, and that was not really that good. So I've still got a lot to experience myself. So I'm looking forward to it. But I have experienced some good DX though. Even though it wasn't as good, it's still better than being at the bottom. And as you can see there at 2019, 2020, it was really at the bottom.
So that always got me because everybody gives out these 5.9 signal reports. And we also have all of this modern filtering inside of radios. And I'm thinking, if we get to the top of cycle 25, we're going to have a new reporting system, because 5.9 at the bottom of 2019 with all kinds of DSP filtering is a lot different than 5.9 at the top of 2025 with all this modern DSP filtering.
No, well, that's what the attenuator button in the radio is actually for. It's for the top of the solar cycle so that you can, too strong.
never turned it on. I'm always on the preamp side of things.
That's right. That's for the bottom. So anyway, what is a solar cycle? Well, every 11 years, the magnetic poles of the sun flip. So that's the north and the south poles of the sun. They switch places, and that leads to activity on the surface of the sun. Now, we're not going to get into too much nitty gritty. In fact, there was a live stream quite a while ago. I think it was on Good Games channel where you guys had Tamitha. Was it a good game stream where you had Tamitha Scove? Yeah.
Yep.
So if you want to have a look, go to Steve K5ATA's YouTube channel, and there's a great presentation there with Tamitha, and she goes Tabitha, and she goes through the stuff that she does with that. But yeah, so this causes sunspot and solar flares. So basically, what happens is that these sunspots and solar flares cause energy that's released from the sun that's directed towards Earth, and this can affect radio propagation by ionizing the ionosphere. So basically, more solar flares, more sunspots occur at the peak of the cycle where we're heading towards than at the bottom of the cycle. So the lowdown is more sunspots equals better DX on the higher bands. And when I mean higher bands, I mean higher HF bands. That's a double, what is it? Double negative? Higher bands?
Higher
HF band. So the effects on radio propagation. So as the solar cycle starts to increase, as we're doing at the moment, or goes to peak, the higher layers in the ionosphere, such as the F layer, they get sufficiently ionized to reflect signals back to the ground. Again, over very long distances. Now, one thing I didn't cover in here, which happens occasionally, is during the solar cycle peaks, we still get things like geomagnetic storms, and we can get sometimes too much energy released towards the Earth, and that causes the opposite effect. So we get blackouts. But basically, what we're focusing on here, though, is the good stuff. And we'll go and show you a website which you can go to see what the current conditions are at the moment. So the maximum usable frequency can even increase up to 50 megahertz. So that's where I'm really interested in, because I want to start working worldwide on 6 meters, which only really happens when the solar cycle is at peak. So there's two key pieces of information that we need to look at when we're looking at how good radio propagation is going to be. So SSN, which is smooth sunspot numbers. So if we go back and have a look at this chart here, you can see, as I mentioned, those dots as we go up and down. Sunspots, they vary depending on how many you get on a particular, at a particular duration on the sun. So what happens is they average them out and then release this smooth sunspots number. So this indicates the amount of dark spots on the sun. So this is levels of quiet activity on the sun. So if there's a high level of sunspot activity, it means that there's going to be potentially better signal propagation on HF. The other thing to look at is the solar flux index. So this is the amount of radio noise that is emitted at 2.8 gigahertz, 2800 megahertz, which is 10.7 centimeters. So basically what they do is they measure the amount of radio noise up to, I think, around about the F layer, and they can work out what the solar flux index, basically how good the ionization is in the upper atmosphere, in the upper ionosphere. So there's a bit of a reading there when we're looking at some numbers, which we'll look at shortly. Poor for the SFI is 50 to 100, mid 100 to 200, good 200 to 300. These are just rough numbers, but as we go and we'll have a look at this website shortly, you'll be able to make sense of some of these numbers. But the key thing to take away is that the better that these two numbers are, in other words, the higher they are, the more likelihood the higher HF bands. And I've just put there 14 megahertz and above, because generally, even in the bottom of a solar cycle, you can still make contacts on 80 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters. But sometimes when you're getting up to 20 meters and above, it's a lot more difficult. So the website we're going to look at is SolarHam, and that's behind you at the moment, isn't it, Steve? I can see that in your screen there.
Up there. That's the Teocron.
You've upgraded your shack. So SolarHam.
You can upgrade your shack too. You have my permission.
I'm definitely trying to upgrade my shack. You can tell by my fancy looking lights in the background, which is what I'm trying to do. It is a nice gradient. So this is SolarHam. This is by Victor Echo 3 Echo November, and this is pretty much your one-stop shop for all things solar, I think, at a quick glance anyway. So we mentioned the solar flux index and the sunspot number here, and you can see that SFI is 164 and sunspot numbers is 119, and he's got these color-coded, so yellow. So 164, what did we say before on that slide? We had 100 to 200 is mid, so mid to moderate on the scale, and then we had sunspot numbers 119, which is in the green, which is on the way up. So this website pretty much gives you all of this information at a quick glance here, and you can see here the 3-day geomagnetic forecast as well, which shows you if there's any storms and any radio blackouts and all this other stuff. This can get quite confusing. I know it definitely gets confusing for me as well, but pretty much we're only going to really be concentrating on these two numbers because they're the main two numbers really for hams. If we get geomagnetic storms and radio disruptions, they're generally not of a duration long enough to affect long-term radio propagation. So you might only have a blackout of a couple of hours at maximum generally. But, I mean, that can vary up and down depending on how severe it is.
Yeah. And so one of the things I would say about this is Hayden's right. This is a little overwhelming, but take it in stride, take it a little bit at a time. So if you get on the radio today and, oh, wow, band conditions are amazing, go check out the numbers. Make a mental note of it. And if you get on the radio a couple of days from now and, oh, wow, band conditions stink today, go check out the numbers and then start to correlate. Like your first time working 20 meters, you had no idea that it went dark, went silent after it goes dark outside. And then it comes back a little bit later. And now that you've used it for a while, if you have, then you start to notice that it has all these different features and works differently during different times of the day. And you kind of just grow this knowledge as you're going along. Don't think you have to know all of this stuff first and then go get on the radio. Just take it easy, one step at a time, and you'd be surprised how quickly this stuff starts to sink in. Did we lose Hayden? He's just kind of staring intently at the words that I left behind. So a 164 is the highest that I have ever seen the solar spot numbers, the SFI numbers. And before that, I didn't know what it was, but 164 means that it's more likely for me to make a contact with Hayden than not likely for me to make a contact with Hayden. And so we did. And 164 is better today than it was yesterday.
So apparently we had a bit of a technical issue there, and I swear it's not solar related. Did I drop out?
You did completely.
Oh well, at least you managed to take over. So I'm not quite sure what you said, but I'm not quite sure what you said, but I'm sure it was all correct.
Don't rewind. Don't go back and watch this again. You'll be fine.
Let me just load these up again. So as Theo was saying, it can be quite daunting. But one thing I did want to highlight here is this cycle 25 progression. This little button here, it's a little bit hidden away and you might miss it. But if you click on that button, this gives you the same graph that I had before, but this will update. And you can see here there's something interesting in here. Predicted sunspot numbers, 34.1. The actual number at the moment is 78.5. So it's past double where it normally would have been predicted. So this is obviously, you can see here it's quite jagged. It'll go up and down as we start to go up the solar cycle. But the higher these numbers, the much better it's going to be. And it's the same too with the solar flux index. So that's indicating that propagation is actually quite strong and quite good at the moment. Now, if we get back to where we were, so that's SolarHemp. So check that out. And what was I going to say before we dropped out? That's right. So you were mentioning, Steve, that you sort of get a little bit of a feel if you go listen to the radio, see if there's any activity, go back, check the website, see what the numbers are, then go back another day. So when you do that, you also get a little bit of a feel of just listening to the radio, the signals that you're hearing, stations that you can work perhaps, and you do get a little bit of a feel of how far you're going to get out and who you're going to be able to contact. But when it all boils down to it, how do you get ready and how do you know who you're going to be able to work? So this is some tips that I come up with to make sure that you don't miss out, because we need to all be ready. Because I know it's like, I think even the other day when I let you know, Tio, that the band was open and you were like, my antenna's down. It's like, oh, well, that's great. So I let a few others know and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm working on the antenna. Get the antenna up in the air.
Yeah, we're all caught because it's like, solar cycle stinks. Propagation sucks. Band conditions are horrible. I'll get to it later.
And that is the trap that you fall into. You fall into the trap that propagation is not here. I've got plenty of time. And then things take over. And it's like, just if you can get it done beforehand, at least it's there and it's ready to go. So I fell into that trap as well a few years ago. I think it was in 2014. I really wanted 6 meters, a decent 6 meter station. And I didn't have a decent 6 meter station. And it wasn't until after the peak had been and gone. So I, couldn't have worked as many stations as I wanted to. Thank you, Dirk, for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. Are we doing dancing? Or do we still do that?
We do whatever you want to do. It's your show, my friend.
Do we?
That's a long one. I'm running out of energy.
Well, we've lost half our audience anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
So get them back.
Yeah, so we'll get them back. We'll get back to being serious. Thank you, Dirk. So basically, I've summarized this in: get the best antenna that you can manage in the air. So what I mean by that is that if you can get a decent antenna in the air, then go for it. But whatever antenna you can manage. So if you can't fit, say, a large, Yagi or a directional antenna, which a lot of people can't, just get a wire antenna up. Because, I've only got a ground-mounted vertical here, and I was able to work, DX when I didn't really expect it. So just get the best antenna that you can up, which is the one that's in the air and active. And the best chance of working the DX is with your choice of antenna.
This antenna would be a whole lot better if it wasn't in my hand.
Yeah, that is correct. Now, actually, while we're on that, just before we do, Lionel, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. You can save the dance for later. Let's catch his breath.
I'm an old man. Yeah. Oh, this is my favorite one.
Oh, actually, no, I thought your favorite one was another one, but we'll do that for the next super chat. So what is that antenna?
This is the LB0FI dipole, and Morton sent this over to me. LB0FI is a new YouTube channel. He's got almost 200 subscribers now. Oh, you can see through the light. You can see the infill pattern that he uses, triangles. That's pretty cool. So it's got a little hole that'll go on top of a regular like fishing pole mast.
Yep.
I just strung it up by the ends, by the insulators, and it worked out really well yesterday. I was playing on 20 meters, and I mean the center feed point was like right at eye level when I plugged it in. But again, that's better than not having an antenna up, and I was making contacts all over the place with it.
Yeah. And that's why I've highlighted don't miss out. So you can miss out by, and this is a problem that I have sometimes where I'll overthink stuff. I'll think, oh, but I need a tree, and I need this, and I need that, and I need, a decent pole. I need some more time. I need to, fabricate it. I need to, and I just overthink things. Whereas it's probably easier to just get an antenna, get a car antenna, get a K6ARK antenna, get a KM4ACK antenna, get that antenna that you mentioned, and just throw it over a tree. And even if the feed point is at eye level, just get on the air and just make some contacts. So that's good. So you got an antenna up in the air, but then how do you know when the band's open? Because I know that you can sit down at the radio, tune across the entire band, and there's nothing. It's absolutely dead. So there's a couple of things that I recommend doing, and one thing is checking the DX clusters. So having a look for anyone else who is making contact near you, see who they're working, and then that gives you a bit of a rough idea.
What is your favorite cluster?
My favorite cluster, is PSK Reporter. That was the next one. I technically don't use DX clusters, but I just put that in there because I know that a lot of people do. But DX Summit is actually probably the one that I do use. Mike's Radio Repair, $10. Don't think of it having to wait 11 years for the next cycle. It's only at solar minimum for a couple of years. The rest of the time, it's either on the upswing or the downswing. That actually is a very, very good way of looking at it, Mike. Correct. And we probably need to do this.
Get my workout this morning.
Well, it is Friday.
It is.
Thank you very much, Mike. Mike's Radio Repair. Yeah, very good point. Very good point. We're on the way. We're on the upswing, so now's the time to get ready. DX Summit. What's that website? Is it dxsummit.net?
dxsummit.fi.
dxsummit.fi. So let me show that quickly. So this is DX Summit.
I stole it from you. Take it back.
You're taking that was DX Heat. DX Summit. So this basically allows you to see who's spotting who and who's working who. So, if I go here and I go VK7, VK and apparently VK7. There's no VK7s on here, but I can see there's VK4s, VK6. They're relatively, they're in the same country. But if you can find someone that's relatively close to you, then you can see who they're working, the frequency that they're on, and their signals and all this sort of thing. This gives you a good overview.
Can you sort this one by frequency?
You can sort it by frequency by adding the filter in.
So you can filter it by frequency, but so this is one of the things that bugs me.
Correct.
Because I'm just kind of I'm a software engineer by trade, so this stuff. What they're doing is they're giving you the spots by the most recent last heard, and then it goes backwards in time from there. And as you're spinning the dial, if you look at that, I mean, you're I don't know, just bring it back up real quick. Pick any one.
Sorry, I had to exclude rather than include. Yep.
So it's 28074, and then 14080, and then 28074, and then 18100, and then 14250. So you're going up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. I'd love to be able to pick a band and then sort it by order of megahertz, by order of frequency. So I can just scroll up.
Apparently. Sorry, no, the filtering is incorrect. The filtering allows you to include and exclude bands. So as I said, I've used this very sporadically. I use this to find out when VK0 PD was active down in Antarctica, and I think that was probably the last time that I used DX Summit.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably do a whole show on just going deep on these different DX clusters. This is DX Heat. This is the one that I like. It does give you the solar activity right on the page. And then you can do all kinds of sorting as to modes and bands and you can do only this band or exclude this band. So like, I don't want to see anything from 12 meters gone. There's all my 12 meters gone.
Yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah. And off to the right there, that little heat map, that's very handy too.
This is the money shot right here. This is
change your continent though. You're not in Europe.
Yeah, this is North America. So I have a really good chance of hearing EU on 15 meters right now. So lots of useful information on this site. This is dxheat.com because of this heat map.
Just change it to Oceania.
10
meters to EU. Okay. And yeah, see 20. So I know that 20 to North America has been open because I've been decoding a few stations, but it's not.
Oh yeah.
It's not really that. It's not really that warm on the heat map. So that they are the DX clusters. Now, the preferred method that I prefer, this might not be for everyone, and this is PSK Reporter. Now, PSK Reporter gives you a bit of an overview, kind of like this. And for those who haven't used it, pskreporter.info /PSK map. And here you can do filtering. So basically, I've got at the moment on 20 meters at the top here, 20 meters, show signals sent received by the country of call sign. So this is not just my station. This is the entire country. So it's picked up that I'm in Australia due to my call sign using FT8 in the last 15 minutes. And you can see here, look at all these lines. Look at all these stations. These are all of the stations that are being heard in by Australian stations in North America, in Japan, in China, and then a few more, not as many in Europe. And that's on 20. If I actually change it to the call sign of VK78H and load it there, then it gives you a lot less, but it does give you a bit of an idea here of like I'm hearing a lot in the US and a few in Japan and things like that.
Your pink blob is weird, man. What makes that happen?
This one up here.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I think that's backwards.
No idea. Yeah, don't know. Southern Hemisphere, maybe.
Okay. Southern Hemisphere. That explains it.
I actually don't know what that pink blob is. What does that actually mean?
So in my screen, to me, that shows up where I hear the most. So it's kind of like this is the average of where you're going to hear signals.
You mean this blob over here, or do you mean the one at the top of the screen?
It's the same blob. It's just got this weird shape because of how it's filled and the disc and all that other kind of jazz.
Yep. So basically, if we go back to the country of call sign, and if we go to 10 meters, because what did that say? That said Europe was possible, and
look at that.
Here we can see. So there's no doubt there's other stations here along the eastern sea, along the east coast, and down where I am, operating on 10, but they're not hearing anyone, or they're not being heard by anyone. However, this station here in Queensland, this station here up north, they are hearing a lot more in Europe. So you kind of get a bit of a feel of who's hearing what and where. Now, obviously, this is all FT8. You can change the modes. You can change it to anything you want. You can change it to Whisper, CW, all these other modes. SSB, that's an interesting one. Let's have a look. Probably not on 10.
I didn't know they did SSB.
No, neither did I. I
guess it's just picking up the regular DX cluster.
Yeah. See, like it's probably not going to load now. Whisper, let's try that. Yeah, so there's a couple. So you can do Whisper as well. SSB, I'm not too sure because I haven't really used it on here. That's what I used. That's what the DX clusters are for. So a few more Whisper. So you can change the mode, but obviously with the popularity of what FT8 is like, that's probably the one that you're going to be using the most. If we reverse this around and we go country of call sign KM9G, this will probably break it because of the amount of US stations that are active on the band.
Ooh.
Which it will. There we go. So, okay, so US is hearing, quite a bit. Obviously, in-house, in-country.
In-country.
In-country, in-continent. and we got Africa, and we got something like that. So I think you kind of get the point here of what PSK Reporter is and how it can be used. So that's good. Using FT8 as a way to detect when the band's open. However, sometimes there's some who don't operate FT8 or they don't really want to operate FT8. There's lots of beacons. Sometimes it's hard to find beacons and their frequencies. So that's why I recommend the NCDXF beacon, International Beacon Project. Now, this has been around for years. This is a bunch of beacons that are all timed around the world in all of these various countries, as you can see here by their call signs. And if you go to these frequencies, 14.1, 18,110, 21,150, 24,930, and 28,200, what happens is every, is it 10 seconds? Each beacon transmits once on each band once every 3 minutes, 24 hours a day. So they send the call sign and they have 4 dashes. The call sign and dash are sent at, first dash is sent at 100 watts. The remaining dashes are sent at 10, 1, and 100 milliwatts. And then once that transmission is ended, then the next beacon transmits on the same frequency, but from a different country. And you can see here as we're going through, you see how they move down. So watch, Argentina is on 20. That will move down to 17. There we go. And now Peru is on 20. And it cycles through all of these. And here's another chart, and it shows you as they're cycling through all the beacons. So this is CW, and this is a very good way of determining if the band's open as well to a particular country. And the good thing about this is because the power is 100, 10, 1, and 100 milliwatts, you could monitor this over a little while and you can, tell if the band's getting better or getting worse. Have you used this before, Tio?
No, I haven't. I accidentally stumbled on a beacon that beaconed more often than 3 minutes. When I was learning Morse code, I was spinning the dial and I heard this station, and I'm like trying to call this station back, and it would just reply back with its call sign. And I'd try and call it back, and it would reply back with its call sign. And it wasn't replying back. It was just beaconing. And then somebody finally came over to the frequency and said, you're trying to work a beacon. They're not going to answer you.
Yeah.
It's just a beacon. I was like, okay,
unless
well, I learned
reverse,
something.
Unless it's a reverse beacon or something like that. But yeah, so this is good for those, because I know that there's a lot out there that don't understand or don't do FT8 or digital modes. So good old CW, there's still beacons, and here you can see Australia's now transmitting on 17, and we'll move to 15 shortly. So that's a good way of determining what band activity is happening on a particular band. So if we roll back to FT8 signals for a minute, so say you're using PSK Reporter and you've switched on your radio and you've got FT8 running, when you start to hear signals are getting strong, so when you have a look in the WSJTX window, I've got too many windows here. I should have queued all this up. So in the WSJTX window, you'll see here a dB measurement. Sorry, what was that?
Speaking of being prepared.
Well, I had it sitting there. So there's a dB measurement. So you can see all of these signals are minuses, basically. There's not really anything standing out. Minus 1 from KF0QR, 2 from JH8FIN in Japan. But at the moment, nothing is really standing out. Nothing that's... Once this minus disappears, that's when things start to get very interesting. And yesterday when I was working SSB, I checked FT8 first, and these signals were strong, and it was loud in the speaker. There was a lot of signals, and it was very loud in the speaker, and you can tell the difference. Now, just going back to the slide, so anything sort of above 5 dB, when it starts to get loud in the speaker, that's when you can kind of start to look towards the move to SSB. And I did this yesterday, and I was actually quite surprised. I was hearing a lot of stations on the band, but even just calling CQ, I was amazed actually who come back to me and who could actually hear me, because not everyone is calling CQ. A lot of people listen,
Right.
and I did the same yesterday. I tuned up and down the band, and I was specifically looking for people who were calling CQ, and not everyone were calling CQ.
A lot of people are afraid to do that.
Yeah, which is, fair enough, because we've done shows in the past about mic fright and what it's like to get on the air.
Well, it's also the same thing if you're meeting up with somebody in real life. You don't go up to somebody at a social event and go, "Hello, would you like to talk to me?" You got to have some energy. You got to have some pep, some excitement, some reason for somebody to actually talk to you. And if you go on the radio and you go CQ, 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 nobody's going to respond back, because they don't like. If I'm spinning the dial and I hear somebody that's already bored with themselves, I'm not gonna. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't need to be bored too.
There's some comments too in the chat, and we'll get back to those shortly. Also, your screens have gone to sleep behind you. You should wake those up.
Oh, yay.
So basically, I've written another point here. If you do feel confident enough to do it, call CQ, because you never know who is listening. So yesterday I called CQ. I was on a live stream, so I kind of had a bit of an advantage, because a lot of people started spotting me on clusters and stuff. But if everyone listened, there'd be no contact. So if you can, call CQ, get on the air, and you never know who you will really work. The last kind of point that I've got here is pick a band that you want to concentrate on to work at the peak. So for me, it's 6 meters. I want to concentrate on 50 megahertz. So I'm optimizing my station around that. I've got the Yagi antenna, so that it's permanently pointed towards North America, because that is the goal on 6 meters. You might have a different goal. You might want to work, say if you're based in North America, you might want to work Europe on 10 meters, or you may want to work you might want to work Africa on 10 meters or something like that. So for those kind of things, if you want to maximize your opportunities, try and get a directional antenna is probably going to be your best bet. But if you can at least put up, even if it's a monoband antenna for that specific band of choice. So like an end-fed half-wave antenna is a multi-band antenna based off the harmonic of the primary band that you've got it for. So say if it's a 40-meter end-fed half-wave, it will work on 20, 15 and multiple harmonics. But if you can build a monoband antenna for a specific band that you really want to try, and generally, the higher bands are the ones that you want, so say 15 meters, 10 meters, and 6 meters, then you'll probably have better results than, say, your end-fed half-wave that you've thrown up in a tree. And the last point there, you'll have to wait another 11 years if you miss the peak. But then, as Mike's radio repair put earlier on, everything else is up and down. It's just at the bottom that we suffer. Yep. So yeah, they were just a couple of slides that actually took a lot longer than I thought. But just some tips, I think, of trying to maximize Solar Cycle 25 for yourself. So any other words of wisdom, Tio?
No, I have no wisdom to share. I'm all out of wisdom.
Well, that's no good, because it means that I don't have time to look through the comments and see who I want to show on screen. So Andrew says, you've encouraged me to go outside and repair my KM4 ACK antenna. I built a KM4 ACK antenna just this evening. I was telling Tio backstage. So I'm going to be using that portable over the weekend.
In the green room.
Tony says, nearly given up on FTA. Everything seems to work, just not getting any answers. We noticed that working as well, didn't we? That sometimes you'll call someone and they won't reply, or they'll give you a huge signal difference. And I think that just comes down to what the person's receive is like at their particular location. Because, like, I don't have an awfully high noise level here, so I can hear a lot of stuff, but someone else may not necessarily be able to hear me. So
yeah, I'm running into the opposite problem. My signal gets out very far, but I can't receive very well right now. I've got a compromised antenna set up, a compromise of a compromise, and I'm working on fixing that, but I'm taking it slowly so I can do some video and share the reasons why it was broken and what the solution is, instead of just going out and fixing it. I mean, it's a real simple problem to fix, but it's a complex problem to actually diagnose. It's kind of like, when your car won't start and you just try a second time and it works. There's a reason
And you
why it
don't know
wouldn't
why.
start. There's something you could
Yeah.
do, but you could also just turn the key and like take off, and who cares,
Yep. I noticed that. So Tony was talking about the FT991 and having issues setting it up for FT8. I was actually considering doing another video, because I have done a video on setting up the 991 for digital modes. However, I went and I set up my club station's 991 the other day, and there was a few things that weren't working with it, and I had to tweak a couple of settings, which may be possibly the problems that Tony is experiencing. So I might fast track that video and do that, because it might help a few more people out. And in actual fact, the video that I did for the 991 was about 3 years ago, and I've learned a few things about WSJTX since then.
Solar Ham is
You need
gone,
better
man.
internet. You need better internet, mate, as well.
It's just that one website. You were having trouble with it this morning too.
I was.
And I just hit
now
the try again button, and it's back.
And I've just lost the comment, so bear with me. Oh, Richard, what about using Whisper? Yeah, so Whisper is very similar to FT8, only that it takes a lot longer, and the signals are the signal strengths are logged in a database. I mean, PSK Reporter does log the database, but you can only look back like the last 15 minutes. So whereas Whisper, you can look back the last 2 weeks, or up to the last 2 weeks. So you can definitely get an indication if you set up, say, a Whisper beacon at your QDH and you put it on an antenna. You can view the results and see if the signals are getting stronger or getting weaker.
So Tony's got a question about he's receiving and he can see activity, and then they were talking about time sync. I see you've got your WSJTX screen there. Bring that up real quick, and I'll give you a quick message on time sync. If you look at the columns on the band activity or the RX frequency window, one of those columns is DT. And I don't know what DT specifically stands for, but I'm going to imagine that it's delta time, and it'll tell you the time difference between your station and the stations that you're hearing. So if all of those are like, Hayden's got some 0.8, some 0.9, but he's got a lot of 0.1s, 0.2s, 0.3s. If you have a lot of 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, then your personal clock is synchronized pretty well with the world time. If you're way off, if you're 1 point something or 2 point something, you're not going to be able to be decoded on the far side. So that's a quick way you can tell if your clock is synchronized properly.
Yeah, and in actual fact, if your clock isn't synchronized properly, then you can install a program. I use this one, which doesn't want to share its screen. I use this one, which is called NetTime, which is too small. You can't really see it there. But if you go to, I did a video on FT8 on my channel, and I describe installing NetTime. There's Dimension 4. There's a whole bunch of other programs that you can use to synchronize your time to make sure that it's up and running. Andrew says the KM4 SK is a great antenna. I run mine at 45-degree angle up 40 feet into a cottonwood tree. So it's very simple, isn't it? You just find a tree, throw your antenna or throw a rope over the limb of a tree and pull the antenna up, and then you're on the air.
The wire you have in the air is better than the wire you have on your desk.
VK4HG, g'day from Eagle Hawk Neck. That's not too far from where I am, but that's not a Tasmanian call sign. So you must be visiting. So welcome. Yeah. So any other thoughts around Cycle 25 or any other questions? Pop them in the chat. We'll see if we can answer them. But I think that anticipation is quite high. And I read a paper today that was published about a month ago that says that some are believing that Solar Cycle 25 is going to exceed expectations. So I think we're going to see a lot more people probably as we start to go up towards the peak shifting off of FT8, because it'll become very easy to make contacts on FT8 and they'll start to make them on sideband. So
maybe, I think,
or CW.
People say that a lot, and I think FT8 serves a completely different purpose than Like there's people that don't like FGA, so they just complain that it's automated or it's lazy or whatever. And then there's people that really are like super addicted to FGA and want to work all grid squares all across the planet. And it's a, whatever gets you excited in the hobby is okay by me. I have no complaints about anything. But some people like to complain.
And
I think it'll keep going.
I usually set a little goal for myself. So my goal is to work the United States on 6 meters on FT8 first. So that's my first goal. And then my second goal is then, once I've done that, to then do it on sideband. So you might have a similar thing with HF. You might want to work, say, all states in the US on digital. And then once you've done that, then you can move to work all states on sideband. Maybe you want to work, Europe stations in the exact same way. So I guess set a small goal for yourself. Don't sort of look, too high, because, there's plenty of time to do these things. But yeah, I think the main thing to take out of this stream today is just to be prepared, and have an antenna up in the air and be ready to go. Tony says, double checked all settings, including time. We'll check next time. Saw your videos. Okay. I'll go through. I think I will do the 991 video again, because I don't own that radio anymore, but there was a few things that I come across, which a couple of gotchas that might help with that. So, all right. So, well, we've got about 14 minutes left. So I think that's kind of the end of what we were going to talk about as far as solar cycle is concerned. But I think should we try and make a contact on 20, Steve, and see if we're successful or not?
Yeah, sure.
We can do that. And anyone else in the chat can also do that if they want to as well. We are on 20 meters at the moment. So conditions have been, because we normally can't make contact, can we? I think we've done it once or twice before.
Yeah, we're up to 3 total now in like 2 years.
Yeah. And last night was probably the best one, considering the antenna issues that you've got at the moment. So
yeah.
And if I share briefly, the problem is if I share my screen, my total screen, it's too small. If I show you the waterfall, these are, the amount of signals have decreased. So, I mean, there's still a couple here, but we'll see how we go. Share screen. Oh, that sounded like an amp triggering.
It's the tuner. The tuner just tuned up my really out of tune antenna.
And already I've got a VK6 calling me.
Nice.
So, very good. I can hear you, VK6 NUL. Hello, Josh. Good morning, or very early morning. What is it? 6 a.m. there now, I think, at a rough guess.
Yeah, about that.
That was just a guess. I kind of guesstimate of what the time is with all you guys, because I have to work around you.
You're seeing K9MP.
K9MP. I am seeing K9MP.
The last on the left.
Is that your grid square or near your grid square?
I am EN35. I don't know how grid squares work. Does that mean that he's like 4 to the right of me? 10 to the right of me?
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds believable.
Sure. Yes, well, he's only 10 to the right of me, so we're fairly close, about 5 hours away.
Actually, one thing which I'm not sure if anyone else has seen this, but so in Grid Tracker, this is just today. Look at all the grid squares not the grid squares, but look at all of the grids that I've been hearing. And then if you zoom in even further, where are you? You're up here somewhere, aren't you?
Yeah, you see that Minneapolis, the dark purple with the straight line going down? I am about an hour and a half to the right of that. So
yeah. So here you go. So you're in this one, EN35. He's the next grid over.
EN25. Okay, excellent.
Ian 25. Okay. So I'm
So you'll never
gathering
be
that the
able to
next
work
one.
me.
So I'm guessing the next one's EM 15. Is that right? EM 35, 45, 55, 65. Yeah, look at that.
Yep. I figured out grid
And
skirts
then,
this morning.
and then going north is so you go into the 20s. So it's another 10 down. No, one. Sorry, one down. 26, 25, 24, 23. Yep.
Perfect. And I just made a contact to FM 17. So now we got to figure the letters out too.
Oh, well, that's above my pay grade. I'll let you do that. VK6, I'm struggling a little bit with here now.
Yeah, and so you've sent so many volleys that I would move on because I would assume that they have moved on.
Yeah, well, I was busy demonstrating something, so that might have been the reason why. The other thing to keep in mind too, which we're kind of deviating a little bit off track, but we've sort of finished our solar cycle stuff. When you're looking at the waterfall here, I usually let it cycle through a few times just to see the open spaces in the waterfall to make sure that I'm not doubling over the top of someone is the first reason. And the second reason is that there's a higher chance that you're going to be heard and decoded if you're not doubling with somebody else. So you can see here there's quite a nice spare patch of real estate here above 2 kilohertz. So I think I might start transmitting here. And by the way, you can click and move the cursor around here if you just click at the top of the waterfall. That moves the green line, but if you hold down control, that will move both. And you can
So the
move
green line
transmit.
is your receive and the red is your transmit.
Yeah. If you do just click, you can go back to WSJTX. I keep unsharing and sharing screens here. Let me do this. It's a lot easier. You won't be able to see it, but that's fine. If you do just change frequencies by clicking, there's a little up and down arrow here. If I want to move my transmit frequency to the receive frequency, press the down one and move it. If I move it again, you can move it.
Nice.
So that's a power tip. What are you hearing at the moment?
Have you ever tried using CQ at the social event? I am hearing WB5, W6, N4. So I have this circle that goes down below.
You can share your screen.
I can, but it's going to be the same thing. That's the wrong button. Share screen, screen 2.
Ollie, shift click changes your receive too. Have you ever tried?
Yeah.
Oh, I see that comment now.
Yeah, like that's back a bit in the show.
Actually, I've just come up with a very good TikTok idea. Thank you very much, Richard. I'll film myself going into a social event going, CQ.
So who am I working right now? I can't see that. K.
I'm currently even.
K5 KIP. And I am odd.
Oh yeah,
so
I worked that station the other day.
Should be able to see you. That's Texas.
Well, the problem is see, I work United States stations and I get an idea of where they are based on call areas because I know like 9's like Wisconsin area, Illinois, 5's Texas, 9 is West Coast. But the problem is that you can keep your call sign if you move. So you get randoms like Mike, K8 MRD in Texas, but he's not a 5 station. He's an 8 station. So
yeah, I'm keeping my call sign when I leave Wisconsin.
Well, that's the thing here in Australia. Generally, in the past, you would when you move to another location, you would get a different call sign. And if you're lucky, you would get the same call sign as you had before, only the number changes. But now they've changed it so that you don't have to change your call sign. You can keep your existing call sign now.
Yeah, Lionel's saying CQ is the best pickup line ever. And I think it is. Imagine the value you bring to the situation if you call CQ compared to if you just talk about like some movie or something. So I just got this Texas station -17 +8. So I am hearing him.
Yeah.
a lot better than he's hearing me.
Just thinking with Lionel. So does that mean that when you walk in and you say CQ, CQ, and the lady replies QRZ, that means that you're in, or? I'll be here all week. Don't laugh at my jokes or anything, Tio. It's fine.
No, I wasn't.
That fell rather flat. It is 4 minutes to midnight here, so. Ollie asks, what antenna are you using? I am using the DX Commander.
Nice. I am using a DX Commander with bad coax.
You are. Ham Bandit says, you can change the text in the CQ box. You can. You can. Occasionally you will see stations calling one another, and then once they've made a contact on FT8, they will say QSY with another frequency or something, and they'll move up.
Yeah, and I've had people say like thanks TO or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. No one is hearing my CQ calls. It's probably starting to get a little bit late on 20 meters. I'll move down to 40. So now I'm on 40 meters now, and I'm calling even. You and I might actually possibly be successful on 40 if your antenna is working.
Ollie, what is your call sign? Where are you from? Because he's picking you up at plus 26 on the sky loop. So you're vertical and he's horizontal.
He's not far from me. So, oh, can you hear that?
Oh, I can.
I think our next
asked me if I re-terminated my coax. No, I have not.
On our next stream, how to deal with RFI in the shack while you're live streaming.
Yeah.
40 meters is the only band that does it.
Let me see. I don't think I can do 40 right now.
So is there a DXpedition TX5N happening at the moment? There must be.
Buzz.
I haven't worked that station. There is a VK DXpedition as well, a VK9. So if you see VK9 anywhere,
no 40.
Snaffle them because they are rare.
Snaffle them.
Is that a word you usually use over there?
Never. Not even once. This is the first time I've ever said that in my life.
If she whistles back in Morse, you've got to keep her.
It depends on what she whistles back. I don't know that I could understand 100% of it. Okay, dear. So yeah, you're pretty close. So probably what's happening at that close of a proximity is Hayden's coming off the bottom of his vertical and hitting the bottom of your loop.
I'm a little bit higher than what Ollie is at my location, but yeah, he's not too far. He's just over the hill. So I've worked
20 meters vertical to vertical, less than a mile apart from each other.
Yeah. Polarization on HF doesn't. You don't get a lot of. There's not a lot of difference with polarization mismatch when it comes to working DX, ground wave certainly, but not DX when it comes to that. Austral Islands. Where are the Austral Islands? As we all go to Google.
In the middle of the ocean.
French Polynesia. Oh, okay. Let me share my screen again.
I made an HF contact park to park on 2 radios and 2 antennas. I think we were just working front end overload.
So apparently that's where the TX5N DXpedition is. That's looks like a prime location to work from here and from the US.
That little bit of the international date line there is funny.
Yeah, the little squiggly line.
Yeah, just everybody but them.
So I am now seeing November Whiskey 7 Mike. I wonder if that's anyone in the chat.
It's West Coast.
And I've just finished working Russia, and I've got Japan now calling me. When we did the FT8 off earlier on earlier on in the day for me, but yesterday for you.
Yesterday.
I made one CQ call on 10 meters, and I had about 10 Japanese stations come back to me. Actually, Josh and I had a QSO on FT8 the other day too, and I also got Kyle AA0Z. But Don, who was in the chat, I actually worked on sideband yesterday or the day before, and I also worked Greg KT4 RAM, I think his call sign is. So, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm not seeing much here from UTO. So I think we've gone bust on the.
Oh, I can't do 40 meters at all. That's why you're not seeing me.
Oh, okay.
I have
never mind.
Infinite SWRs. Infinite SWRs.
Too many SWRs. Yeah, Don says yesterday morning early. Yeah, it was early. Not for me, but for you guys it was. Alrighty, well, I think that's the end of the show. Thank you very much, Tio, for joining me, and for everyone in the chat for joining us. I hope that you learned a little bit today. If you watch this on replay, then comment below if you have experienced a solar cycle peak before and what your most memorable contacts of those particular peaks have been. So I'd be very interested to read your comments as always. Before we leave for today, I just want to do a quick shout out to all of the Patreons and the YouTube channel members. Without your support, these kind of shows and the stream would not be possible. So I'd like to thank everyone on this list for doing that. If you would like to become a Patreon or a channel member, there is a link in the description below. Tio's name is there somewhere. There it is, temporarily offline. Go and check out Steve's channel, KM9G. What's coming up?
I've got this Teocron that I'm working on behind me. I've got a bunch of radio reviews in the pipeline. The True SDX, the USDX transceiver is really hot right now. So I'll be doing some more videos on this. I've got to hack into it and change the VFO knob. If you get these off of like Banggood or AliExpress, the VFO knob goes in the opposite direction than what you might think. So
yeah. Oh, very good.
Always something
and you're
new.
going to fix that DX command, that coax on that DX commander.
I got a lot of stuff to fix. That's the good thing about being a ham. You're never bored. There's always something to do.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, guys, for joining us. 73 to everyone, and we will see you in the next video. 7-3.